Okay guys, so let's talk a little bit about the big rumor mill that has hit the internet, and this is of course regarding the Punisher himself, Frank Castle, coming on to another TV show that is part of the MCU. This time specifically having a guest role on Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. on ABC. Now, obviously, at first glance, you think, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., man, that's just a bunch of boring actors and agents, and I haven't really watched the show, because it doesn't seem that many people have watched the show that are complaining about it, because if you guys remember to have stuck with it, originally it was an 8 o'clock show, and then it moved to 9, and now it's at 10. Every increase in hour has allowed them to go darker, and the ratings change. At 10 o'clock, you can get away with a lot more violence than you're allowed to at 8 o'clock. It's just the nature of how it is, because they're assuming that people have put their kids to bed. And also, obviously, since the Marvel Universe sees how the Punisher is doing, they saw the killer reaction, and they see how Netflix is doing, they have to be reactionary to that as well. Which is why you have seen a giant tonal shift in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. That is the primary reason they've brought in Ghost Rider, because they're allowed to go out there and do a little bit more. They're allowed to do a lot more with these characters. They're allowed to represent different universes and different facets of the MCU that they might not have had access to 2 or 3 years ago because of the nature of these contracts and how everything was shaping up. Now, here's how all of these rumors are starting. First off, one of the co-creators of The Punisher was actually at the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 4 premiere, and a lot of people started to raise their eyebrows and ask a lot of questions regarding this. And when people started asking questions specifically regarding the possibility of The Punisher and why is Conway there, Jeff Loeb goes out and says, you'll understand why all of these creators are here down the road. Now, at the same time, we actually had the creator of Ghost Rider there, so a lot of people started to raise questions and raise their hands, being like, hey, question, quick. If that's the creator of Ghost Rider, or co-creator, why is the co-creator of Punisher there? Does that lend any hint towards the future? Now, the second hint comes from another source, which just happens to be an official source, which is within itself kind of really important, and that is Marvel's Netflix and New York Comic Con. Essentially, every year, the Marvel Netflix stuff has a pretty big presence at New York Comic Con. Hell, it's taped right there in Hell's Kitchen. Comic Con takes place in Hell's Kitchen, so you really can't do better than that. And every time that they announce something, it's a huge deal. So they officially had John Bernthal scheduled to appear in all 3 days, and he was going to appear for autographs and all that. Suddenly, they updated us saying he's only going to be there one of the days. And the reason for this being, according to them, was the fact that he was going to be shooting his Netflix series. Now, here's the thing, if you're keeping count, that this doesn't add up. First off, they seem to only want to run one production on any of the given Netflix series, which is why they did Luke Cage. After Luke Cage, they jumped right into doing Iron Fist. After Iron Fist, they're getting right into the Defenders. They're never overlapping because Netflix doesn't have that type of money or capital and that type of resources to be doing everything at once at this current stage. So, when you really think about that, and the fact that we haven't heard any of the major casting, and there hasn't been any official set photo or anything of, Netflix actually shooting anything with the Punisher, it kind of makes you raise your eyebrow. People are going, okay, well, these guys are possibly hinting at Punisher appearing in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Now, this scheduling conflict happens. Explain? Now, yes, it could be an Iron Fist cameo, but why? These characters are far from any way connected. Like, there's really not much. I mean, if it was a Luke Cage cameo in Iron Fist, then yeah, that makes sense. Or an Iron Fist cameo in Luke Cage, okay, that makes all the sense in the world. But Punisher? Iron Fist? No. Different ideologies, different belief systems, completely different in every way, so I definitely don't see that one happening. Then of course you could say, well, they're doing the Defenders, except the Defenders doesn't start till late November, early December, so that is out of the question. But there is something else that a lot of sources are forgetting, and it's probably because they don't watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. once again, which brings us all the way back around to Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. If you guys remember, and I'm probably the only one, and there's going to be 3 other people that remember this once I mention it, there is a moment in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. where Skye is talking about where she came from, who her parents are, how she wants to know, and where she's been all her life. Now during this, she mentions that she was orphaned. She just so happens to be orphaned at the same exact place where we know that Matt Murdock was orphaned, and this is also brought up in the Netflix series for him. So them being about the same age, it is feasible that at some point they did cross each other's paths in this orphanage. Now what exactly does this have to do with Punisher? Well, bear with me for a moment. In season 1, I believe it was, there is a moment where they are trying to talk to Skye and she's still into her hacking phase, and they just so happen to name drop Microchip. Microchip, the character that is going to be one of Punisher's best allies and friends and his supplier of weapons and does all of this huge tech stuff. Now, Skye knows who Microchip is. So, if you go back to the ending of Daredevil Season 2, we see that Punisher finds a disc that says Micro, which is of course a hint towards Microchip. Now, what if the clues on this disc are for Frank Castle to find Micro, and he has to do it by, trying to find some of his known associates? What if one of these just so happens to be Daisy, or Quake, or Skye, whatever she was at the time he knew her? Obviously she was Skye, or, whatever, but that would be her. So maybe this leads Frank Castle over here to be able to interact with the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And let's be honest here, if the Marvel Netflix series crosses over with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., this might be one of the biggest whoa moments possible. Because up until this point, we hear the scheduling conflicts and all this, and how hard it is to set up all these universes to cross over from the sources themselves. So this would be the first hint into a broader world that could feasibly lead to all of these characters appearing together in Infinity War. So you guys let me know your thoughts about all this down below.